Good Monday, Cup of Sales Joe. Did you recognize that opening music? If so, gold star. If not, maybe this little bit will help. Yes, it's the mighty Zepp. One of the reasons I really like Led Zeppelin is because they couldn't be pigeonholed into a certain kind of music. They morphed and evolved and simply applied their musicianship to the music they loved to make. And no Led Zeppelin album showcases this more than the one whose title is the theme today. Released in 1979, In Through the Outdoor was Zeppelin's final studio album, and it has a bit of everything. Hard rock, honky-tonk, blues, country, even what may be considered a few ballads. I started with the opening song, one of my favorites, In the Evening, and you'll hear more of this diverse album as we go today. So, as we navigate our work and even our lives to get where we want to and be who we want to be, there is no lack of things battling for our attention. And yet science has shown that while the things available for us to invest our attention in is at an all-time high and growing, our ability physiologically to attune to more things has not developed beyond where it was 100 years ago. Don't get me wrong, our ability to assimilate information has been aided by technology, but along with that capability comes an inundation of data and content capable of drowning us should we let it. And sometimes we do that, don't we? Not only that, but as it is designed to do, we may begin to find value just in the effort, or the lack thereof, to curate all this information, as much as the actual content we find. The content may be of questionable value for us personally, but the method we receive it has become ubiquitous. Out of habit, we check our phones at a red light because 30 seconds of mental rest is no longer acceptable. Just because we can do more, does that mean we should? Just because we have the world at our fingertips, should that be the defining factor in our day? The takeaway from this observation for me is that we no longer need to concern ourselves with finding opportunities for growth or connection, but we do need to diligently control which of these avenues we choose to allow in our lives. In other words, in a world of abundance, we no longer need to worry about mental malnutrition, but more so be worried about overindulgence, which leads to overwhelm, or it taking the place of the things we find purpose in. What is important to us is and must always be within our purview and not given to the world or social media or media in general to decide. Because the motives of these parties is not our good, not necessarily our welfare. Not that they intentionally strive to disrupt and take us away from the good and important things, but that is the end result if we are not intentional and conscious ourselves about it. So how do we adapt, especially if you are, like me, a lifetime learner, to this age of overwhelm instead of what we may have known previously? A world where we needed to seek out opportunities for growth and learning. The barriers to entry for most content is near zero now versus having to earn and exert effort to get such intel. In fact, the value we find in anything we assimilate may be inversely proportional to the ease at which we obtain it. There is a lot of foliage and underbrush which we must mentally machete through to get to the valuable and beneficial content. But sometimes we are just content with what is in front of us because we've been conditioned that because we want it, we should find it. The world should, and now can, beat a path to our door. But in some cases, don't we wish no one actually knew where we lived? Think about how nutrition has evolved with technology and science. You can eat something that tastes just like a strawberry, but has no part or piece that came from a strawberry. It was developed in a lab. And while it may give us the momentary feeling of eating a strawberry, there is so much more to nutrition than just how something tastes. And in fact, the foods that are most popular and that we crave were designed to do exactly that. They were made to make us want more, not to nourish us. The perfect recipe and combination of fat, texture, salt, and sugar is known, and that just makes us want more of it, but it leaves us wanting nutritionally. Likewise, much of what information is readily available and in fact hitting us, whether we want it or not, is designed the same way, and it leaves us wanting as well. So the lesson today is getting into what we want these days requires us to put the things crowding our consciousness out of our mental maps. The way in is through the outdoor of putting the distractions and vestigial activities away from our attention. If we do not do this, even when we come across valuable and beneficial content that we know will benefit us, we don't have the mental bandwidth to dig into it. Let me ask you this. How many good ideas or philosophies have you heard and made a mental note to dig into soon and find out more about it, but you never did? As Ben Franklin said of nutritional health, applies eerily to our mental health these days. Few people have died of malnutrition, but of overconsumption, thousands. I believe for myself, and maybe for you as well, the reason this is so hard is fear. FOMO, as they call it. I know if I am not on my email for a few hours, which in some cases would allow me to just get some deep work done, I may get antsy. I worry that there is something urgent or important that I am missing. This is truly allowing the great to become victim to the good. Do we realize that email and text alerts and the 24-hour news cycle is all designed to grab our attention and then keep it? When is the last time you tuned into network or national news and it wasn't breaking news? The din of alerts and updates and marketing being directed at us is immense, and we worry that something will happen and we won't know about it. That is allowing the world to determine our priorities. Yes, all of these channels are how we work. We find opportunities and take care of things and make things happen. But there is a tipping point when we become the follower and not the leader. We go from puppet master to the puppet. It's a very easy thing to let happen. And the longer we allow that to be the case, the longer break we need from the hustle and bustle to regain this control. Else we become very good at very ordinary things. So follow me here. The usual routine for me, and maybe you can relate, is that I do a lot of these seemingly urgent things that are thrown at me first in my day or in my week. Then I try to get to the really important things, if and when there is time. Even when I do time blocking and set time aside, I find myself pushing that back and maybe even not getting to it at all if there's a lot of other pressing issues or work to do. But this leaves the important waiting and sometimes begging completely. It's the important versus the urgent. Outside priorities versus our own. It's like they say, which is the real alarm that you set? The one for the person you want to be, which you set the night before, or the one for who you are now, maybe when you hit snooze a few times? Is your workday currently based on the person you are or the person you want to be? It's not easy to put ourselves in the mindset of who we want to be, but let's try that now. If you were accomplishing everything you wanted, getting everything you want done, and becoming the person you want to be, how would you handle your work responsibilities and your workday differently than maybe you are now? Take one day this week and do exactly that. Act as if you are the person you want to be. Handle things the way that you would if that was the case. It may feel uncomfortable, but it is what is standing between you now and who you want to be. Jumping that mental chasm is necessary to change things. Set aside your fear of missing out and just be the you that you envision. Ironically, this Led Zeppelin album was done with virtually no technology that we know of these days. No click track, no auto-tune. Just a band and their creativity and their instruments innovating and creating musical magic. If you're like me, sometimes it's nice to be reminded that this kind of thing could be created without all the modern conveniences and bells and whistles. And you can hear it in the music itself. I want to leave you with one more quick lesson. I heard recently someone say that there are 2 work days. The beginning, say the morning, is for self, and the rest of the day is for service. The beginning is protecting you and what's important to you and getting done what you want to get done. It puts on the armor for the rest of the day so that all the things thrown at you don't drag you down emotionally. And if we don't take that time first thing, if we do not put on our armor for the day, then we are susceptible to being wounded by the things that are being thrown at us. So, how are you protecting what is important to you? How can you be better in getting things out that are not serving you and get in the great and meaningful work? Let your fear go, and for at least one day this week, make it fully yours. Give what is important to you the beginning of your day and as much as you can. You may find that it gets you closer to your goals than the dozens of other things you normally find yourself occupied with. Be brave enough to walk in through the outdoor. Have a great week.